All right, one of the big questions that we get all the time is, what's Hayden, Idaho like? So in today's video, I'm going to break down the pros and cons of Hayden, Idaho, so you guys can get a better understanding of that specific town right up here in North Idaho. Let's go. Hey, our team, we literally get calls, texts, and emails every single day from people just like you trying to learn more about North Idaho. If you're new to this channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and tap the notifications bell. That'll keep you up to date on all of our latest content. And we put out a ton of content. Also, check out our podcast on the same channel. It's under the podcast tab. You can find it on Rumble, Spotify, iTunes, and other platforms as well. That podcast deals specifically with the community here in North Idaho. We have some amazing guests and really good conversations that'll give you a better understanding of what the people are like up here. So check that out. All right, jumping right in. We're going to start with the pros because everybody loves Idaho, and we'll hit you with the cons at the end. So stick around. That's where the probably more pertinent information is going to be. So stick around for that. I've got lots of info for you today. Hayden, Idaho. So population is about 17,000. Proximity wise, it's borders Coeur d'Alene, it borders Rathdrum and Post Falls. So it's hard to tell kind of when you go from one to the next. They're all close together, mileage wise. Drive time from Hayden, depending on where you're at in Hayden, of course, but let's say the center of Hayden to Coeur d'Alene is going to be about 15 minutes. Really, it's like 5 miles, but you're dealing with smaller roads and traffic lights, and that's going to slow you down. Drive time to, say, Spokane International Airport, you're looking about 45 minutes, once again, depending where you are in Hayden. So those are kind of some of the bigger landmarks that you might want to keep in mind as far as drive time. To Sandpoint, you're looking about 45 minutes as well, which is nice. So you're pretty good location wise as far as access to everything right here in North Idaho. All right, number one pro for Hayden, Idaho is outdoor recreation. There is a ton, and I know I hit this a lot because North Idaho is like the mecca for outdoor recreation. But Hayden in particular is really good because they've got the lake, Hayden Lake, right there at Honeysuckle Beach is a great public access. There's also sportsman's access on the north side of Hayden Lake. So there are places to get into the lake. A lot of Hayden Lake is privately owned, so maybe you have a friend that lives on the lake, that's a plus. If not, you're going to be accessing in one of those points right there. You can boat on Hayden Lake. There's a marina, so boating is great there as well. You know, all the boating activities, wake surfing, wakeboarding, water skiing, that's up there, of course. And then kayaking, you know, paddleboarding, that kind of stuff is there in abundance as well as really good swimming. So it's a nice lake. It's in the deeper parts. It's plenty deep enough. It's beautiful. It's crystal clear, surrounded by smaller mountains with pine trees. It's absolutely gorgeous. So outdoor recreation is key. One of my favorite things about Hayden is you've got access on the north side of Hayden Lake. You've got access to a national forest up there. So you can drive up there, hit the Forest Service roads and get out into the middle of nowhere. You can literally go all the way to Montana out that way. So you can, you know, take your side-by-side, your dirt bike, your truck, whatever, and go recreate there to your heart's content. You can hunt up there. You can shoot. There is a public shooting area that's designated. You can also pull off the side of the road and shoot, do it in a safe manner, and don't leave your trash out there. But that's a great opportunity for public access is right there on the north side of Hayden Lake. All right, number two pro for Hayden is the small town community feel, really tight knit. It's a smaller size community up here with, like I said, 17,000 population, cute little downtown. They do great community events there, parades, things like that. And it's just nice. It's like that small town feel that you might be looking for. And that's one of the big benefits of Hayden. You don't get as much tourism as you do in Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls. So you're close to everything, but you're a little bit off the beaten path. And, you know, like I said, that small town community is what a lot of people are looking for, and Hayden definitely has that. All right, third pro of Hayden is low crime rates. Now, I talk about crime rates a lot here in North Idaho. They're lower in general than the national averages everywhere in North Idaho. Hayden is no exception to that. Very, once again, small town community neighbors look out for each other. Sure, you know, there's a huge population of retired responders up here and veterans, and they're in Hayden as well. So you have a very safe community. Hayden is actually policed by the sheriff's department. They contract out to the city of Hayden. So Hayden does not have its own police force, but Kootenai County sheriffs do an excellent job of maintaining safety in that community. So as far as crime goes, super low, and that's all across the board. Property crime, homicide, violent crime, things like that. Very low, which is awesome. Remember, armed society is a polite society, and that is no exception for Hayden. All right, next up, affordability. Hayden is more affordable than parts of Coeur d'Alene. It's not the most affordable community up here by any means, but there are pockets of it that are more affordable. Of course, there are exceptions, right? If you end up on the lake or some large acreage north of the lake, you're going to pay a premium for that. However, the communities in Hayden are generally priced a little bit better than, say, downtown Coeur d'Alene, which gets to be very expensive. So it is still affordable for many families to end up that way. And it's, very desirable for younger families as well, and retired folks, because of all of the, amenities that it has to offer, the location, the low crime, all of those things make it a prime place to live. And like I said, slightly more affordable than Coeur d'Alene, not as affordable as Post Falls or Rathdrum by any means. But, if you're looking for that vibe and you want to be close to Coeur d'Alene, it could be a good secondary option for you rather than moving into downtown Coeur d'Alene. All right, next up, we got mild summers and really scenic seasons. So the summertime in Hayden is perfect. Your average temps are in the high 80s, low 90s. You will occasionally get up over 100 degrees. That does happen up here. It's not super common. I think this year we had maybe 5 days that were over 100. Totally tolerable. So summertime is where it's at. You've got long days. The sun comes up, starts getting light at like 4 a.m. and it's light until almost 10 o'clock at night during the summertime. So you have a really long day, perfect temperature. It cools down in the evenings, in the 70s. So you can open the windows up and kind of enjoy that cool breeze to cool your house down. You will probably want air conditioning. Most homes up here do have it. That is something to consider because there are plenty of warm days when that becomes a factor. So you've got mild summers and really scenic seasons. It's fall right now. It's October 25th and the fall colors are in full effect. So I was driving around town yesterday and, you've got these bright yellow and bright red colors as the maple leaves and the birch trees are starting to turn. Some are starting to fall off, right? We're getting to that point, but you have this period of time when it's absolutely unbelievable coloring and you look out in the mountains and you see the tamaracks turning yellow and it's gorgeous. Then, we're going to go into wintertime. You'll have a nice snowy season. It'll be beautiful in that regard as well. And then springtime will hit and that's a whole nother amazing season here because it starts to get a little bit warm. You start wearing the t-shirts and, you're seeing the flowers and the greenery start to pop up. That is one of my favorite things about very distinct seasons, and each one is different and unique and absolutely gorgeous. So definitely something to appreciate there. All right, next up, family-friendly environment. So Hayden has a great family-friendly environment. You've got good public schools, tons of parks, access to outdoor recreation, bike paths, all the stuff that young families will absolutely love. You can get the kids out riding the bikes in the neighborhood. It's not that busy, so you can ride your bikes on the street in most streets and feel safe. And that is a huge plus to me. Also, you're very close to all of the amenities that Coeur d'Alene has to offer. And if you needed to, Spokane's not that far away. So you have access to all of that stuff. Shopping, cultural events, parade, farmers market in Hayden, all of that stuff, the big box stores, it's all very local to that area. So it's really family friendly and just like a wonderful community. I keep harping on that, but I'm serious. It's like probably one of my favorite communities up here because it's got that small town vibe, but it's close to everything. So you can kind of remove yourself from the busyness of Coeur d'Alene because downtown Coeur d'Alene is getting pretty busy, but still have access to it. Like I said, it's only a few miles away. Costco is going to be like a mile or two from wherever you end up in Hayden, which is nice. So you've got access to that as well. Got to take my retainer out. That's better. All right, time to hit on the negatives. Here's the downside of living in Hayden, Idaho. Limited job opportunities, that's number one. So a lot of people that end up there are retired or work remotely or work outside of Hayden, which may not be a bad thing, but just know that you're gonna be commuting from wherever you're at. There are not a ton of jobs up there. And that's a big factor for a lot of people. I think, a lot of the jobs are the service industry and like I said, remote work. Wages are not going to be maybe even up to the standard of living or the cost of living for North Idaho. So that's another thing to consider. You may end up having to work outside of Hayden itself. And like I said, commute time's not that bad. So it may not be a big deal if you're living or working in Coeur d'Alene, living in Hayden, or even working, Post Falls or potentially even in Washington and then having to commute that. It's not that bad of a drive. Traffic can be iffy at times depending on what route you take, but it is definitely something to consider. Job opportunities up there are somewhat limited. All All right, number 2 con is winter conditions. If you're looking at moving to North Idaho, you probably realize that we do get snow and ice. Wintertime can be long and dreary. That's probably the biggest complaint that people have, is that very short days. We don't get a ton of daylight during the wintertime. And, if it's cold and cloudy outside, it definitely can wear on you during, January, February, March. Those tend to be the worst months. So that's a big factor for a lot of people. Driving conditions, they do a pretty good job of keeping the roads plowed. But, if you're living on the backside of Hayden Lake, the roads are very windy, and if they get icy, it's definitely can be anxiety inducing for people that are not used to that. I talk about this in a lot of videos. There are ways to mitigate that. Obviously, snow tires are a great way to mitigate that. All-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and just getting out and practicing. So if you're coming from an area that you have not dealt with winter driving conditions, find a empty parking lot, drive around in there and get a feel for your vehicle on ice and on snow, because they do drive differently. Best bet is to just slow down. All right, next con, lack of diversity and lack of nightlife options. If you're like me and you go to bed at 8:30, you might not care, but there are not a lot of things to do at night up there. Of course, there are some bars and things like that, restaurants and things. So you have access to that, but there's not a ton going on there at night up in Hayden. You don't have a lot of entertainment venues or things like that. Obviously, you're close to Coeur d'Alene, so you have access to it there. But if you're going to try to stay in your town, you're going to be a little bit limited. And Hayden, like all of North Idaho, is not super diverse culturally or racially. There's no rhyme or reason to that. It's not racist. That's just the way it is currently. So, if that bugs you, that is something to consider. It does not mean if you are of a different race or culture that you're going to be discriminated against. That's not a reality up here. So that's nothing to be concerned about. But if you are not comfortable, being in a population that is predominantly white, then that's something to consider for sure. All right, next con, growth and development issues. So Hayden, like most of North Idaho, has seen a tremendous amount of growth in the last few years alone. That has driven housing prices up drastically since, say, 2019, to the tune of almost 40%. So something to consider there for sure. Prices are on the higher side for homes. Like I said earlier, they're not as high as Coeur d'Alene, but high compared to a lot of other North Idaho. So, and the other thing is they are running out of space to develop in Hayden. It's pretty much developed. You've got several newer neighborhoods that are going right now, but they're filling up rapidly. And once those are full, there's not much elsewhere to go in Hayden. So that could continue to drive prices up. So if you're thinking about moving to Hayden, now would be a good time to do it, because you're going to get in at a market price where it will inevitably go up higher as we run out of room to develop. And then those homes the demand goes up for those homes, and there's lack of inventory. Okay, here's another con that comes up quite a bit. And like I touched on earlier, not as bad as Coeur d'Alene, but tourism and seasonal traffic can affect living in Hayden for sure. If you try to go to Honeysuckle Beach in the summertime and you don't get there early, it's going to be really crowded. That is like the only-ish public access beach on Hayden Lake. And it's not that big. So that's definitely a factor, right? Summertime, things get crowded. Downtown gets more crowded. There are vacation rentals there. People will snatch those up. So you will see increased traffic. And the roads are, if you drive 95 at any time of day, you're going to just hate your life, because you will hit every traffic light through there without fail. And it will drive you crazy. So a lot of people avoid 95, which then puts more driving pressure on, say, North Government and 4th Street, which are north-south thoroughfares heading into Hayden. So something to consider right there. You are going to have to deal with some seasonal traffic issues for sure. All right, last up, healthcare access. This is a big question for a lot of people. Now, let me preface, Hayden has doctors, dentists, all of that stuff. It's accessible to you there in Hayden. There is no hospital in Hayden. The closest one is going to be Coeur d'Alene, which in reality is not very far. I'm talking 10 minutes. And Coeur d'Alene has a great hospital there with Kootenai Health. The saving grace is that, if you do need specialized care and you're living in Hayden, it's not that hard to get to. You're going to either head into Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, or if you want something or need something very specialized, you'd pop over into Spokane. Like I said earlier, is only about 45 minutes away. So, they have a specialty children's hospital over there, and then other healthcare options that are much more specialized than you'll find on the Idaho side. So keeping that in mind, you're going to have somewhat limited access, as far as choices when it comes to healthcare if you stay in Hayden. But the saving grace is that it's not that far away if you need to find it. All right, that's it. So there's the pros and the cons. The decision is up to you. I just give you the information. Hayden is a a wonderful community. It is a small town feel, great for families, great for retired folks, lots of housing options. You've got, tight-knit neighborhoods where lots of families might live. You've got larger acreage properties on the north end of Hayden Lake, and you've got waterfront homes available too. So Hayden kind of runs the gamut of what North Idaho living can be. And a lot of people choose to live there because it's family friendly, low crime, a little bit off the beaten path, but still super accessible for all of the amenities right here in the Coeur d'Alene area. So it could be a great option for you. Definitely something to consider. And if you're thinking about it or you have more questions, shoot us a call, text, or email. We would love to help you make that smooth move right up here to North Idaho.